Is Black Medal of Honor recipients, and we're talking to Dr. Daniel Gibran of the History, Political Science, and Geography Department at Tennessee State University. And of course, Dr. Gibran, before we left, we were talking about some of the problems in terms of African Americans and blacks being recipients of the Medal of Honor. And let's allow you to continue that discussion.
Right. In 1990, Acting Secretary of the Army John Shannon commissioned a study to investigate racial bias, or why no African American, because the charge was always present that perhaps the Army was segregated, which was official policy. Maybe racism played a definite role in precluding blacks from receiving the Medal of Honor. So this study was commissioned in 1990, but it did not come to the fore until 1993, when it was opened up for wider participation from historically black colleges and universities. At that time, I was at Shaw. I responded to this request for a proposal, won the contract, recruited a team, and began the archival investigation. Now, 7 months into the investigation, we were not able to find, having looked into thousands of boxes of archival material pertaining to World War II, any unprocessed recommendation for a Medal of Honor for a black soldier. That was our mandate. That was the statement of work, the essence of it. Having not found any unprocessed recommendation for a Medal of Honor, I went to the contracting officer representative and lay my case. She said, all right, fine, I want you to write up your study reflecting that you haven't found any unprocessed recommendation for a black soldier, which means we can bring this study to a close. But I was adamant and wanted to go down a different route. So I went to conduct research at the Marshall Library, at the Marshall Foundation Library in Virginia. While there, I came across an old Army publication of 1948 that set very clearly two precedents on the Medal of Honor. One was going back to World War I, where General Black Jack Pershing ordered that a study be done to re-elevate or re-examine Distinguished Service Cross cases with a view to elevating them to the Medal of Honor. As a result of that study, 78 Medals of Honor came to the fore. In World War II, General Eisenhower wrote a letter to General Mark Clark asking him, or telling him, that there should be a better balance of distribution between the two theaters of the Medal of Honor. 4 Distinguished Service Cross cases were elevated to the Medal of Honor. Armed with those two precedents now, I went back to the contracting officer and said, we have 9 black Distinguished Service Cross cases in World War II. Why can't we do the same thing for them? To re-examine their cases with a view to elevating them to the Medal of Honor. And she said, fine, go ahead. So we were able to move the study in another direction, and you know the result. After I made the submission of the study on the 18th of January 1990, the Army took another 2 years and studied our recommendations very, very carefully. And as a result, 7 of the 10 names that we submitted, with all the supporting documentation and archival material, became recipients of the Medal of Honor.
And so these individuals were elevated to that position of
right.
And we also understand during the last couple of minutes that we have here, Dr. Gibran, that quite recently you went to a presidential reception at the White House dealing with this. And over the last 2 minutes and 15 seconds that we have, let's talk about that presidential reception.
Well, on the 13th of January 1997, which is this year, an award ceremony was held in the East Room of the White House, in which the President bestowed the Medal of Honor on the 7 veterans. Only 1 was alive. This was a very solemn, very dignified ceremony, and I think the entire nation watched it on television, and especially, that surge of feelings of patriotism and so on that came over us when we saw the only recipient, Vernon Baker, who is alive. He broke down in tears. Even the President cracked up. That was a very solemn occasion. And I want to say before closing that in my heart I believe that the United States Army, after all these years, has done the right thing. They have taken corrective action to right a great injustice that was done to African Americans. And I believe this will bring about a lot of healing in our society.
Okay, Dr. Gibran, we've got about a minute for a final comment that you might make dealing with these recipients. Any final comment in terms of your attitude about what has really happened and what you've been able to accomplish?
Well, I have met the families of a number of them, and I have met Vernon Baker, the recipient who is alive. And there is something to be said about individuals like Vernon Baker, Staff Sergeant Reuben Rivers from Oklahoma, Lieutenant John Fox, Edward Carter from Los Angeles. These men were a cut above the rest of their comrades.
Very good.
You know, that can be clearly gleaned from their action, from their attitudes, and from reports we have.
Very good. And let me interrupt you, Dr. Gibran, and thank you for bringing that excellent information to us today. And let me encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments.